Welcome back to my channel again. Let's explore another British king, Edward the Confessor. What happened when a mighty Viking dies and leaves behind a shattered throne after the death of King Canute the Great, the conqueror who ruled England, Denmark and Norway? The English crown didn't pass smoothly. There were feuds, power grabs, and forgotten prince waiting in exile. But from that chaos rose a quite deeply religious king, a man who would go down in history as Edward the Confessor. He was no warrior, he fought no great battles, yet his reign shaped the future of England more than most kings before or after him, from Viking sons to Norman invasions. This is the epic journey of England after Canute, and the final chapter before 1066 would change everything. To make it easy and interesting, we divided it in parts. So here starts our part number 1, the death of a Viking. King Canute the Great died in 1035. He was not just any king. He was a Viking warrior who had done the unthinkable. He had conquered England, married into the English royal family, and built a North Sea empire that stretched from Denmark to Norway and all the way to England. But even giants must fall, and when Canute died, he left behind a problem. 2 sons, born of 2 different mothers. One was Harold Harefoot, son of Ælfgifu of Northampton, a noble English woman Canute had been with before marrying Queen Emma, and his other son was Harthacnut, son of Emma of Normandy, the queen, and a much more legitimate heir in the eyes of royal court in Winchester. But there was one big issue. Harthacnut was in Denmark at the time, and Denmark was under threat. He couldn't leave it undefended, so while he delayed, Harold Harefoot stepped in. Now starts our part number 2, the brief rule of Canute's son, Harold Harefoot. Harold was quick to act and quick on his feet, hence the nickname Harefoot. He got the backing of many nobles in the north and seized power of England, acting first as regent, then claiming the full title of king. Queen Emma, however, stayed in the south, holding Winchester and supporting her son Harthacnut from afar. It was a tense standoff. Harold's rule was controversial. According to some sources, he even exiled Edward and Alfred, Emma's sons, from her first marriage to King Ethelred the Unready. Alfred returned to England around 1036, but was captured, blinded, and died from his wounds. Many believe Harold was responsible. Despite all the drama, Harold Harefoot ruled for 5 years, until he died suddenly in 1040. He was buried in Westminster, though when Harthacnut returned, his body was dug up and thrown into a marsh, a harsh end for a harsh king. Now let's talk about his second son, Harthacnut. Now free to claim his throne, Harthacnut arrived in England with a fleet of ships. He ruled harshly, levying heavy taxes to pay his navy and taking revenge for his brother Alfred's death. But his reign was short. In 1042, while attending a wedding feast, Harthacnut suddenly collapsed and died, likely from a stroke or heat failure. He had no children, which left only one man as the only possible heir. Now here starts our part number 3, the return of our prince, Edward. The year was 1042. England stood at a crossroad. The line of Canute has ended. The Viking era of kings was drawing to close, and from across the sea a new figure emerged, a man who had been forgotten, even exiled for years. His name was Edward, son of Ethelred the Unready and Emma of Normandy. Edward has grown up in Normandy among his Norman relatives. He had fled there as a child when the Viking invaded. While England went under Canut's rule, Edward lived a quiet life, studying religion, watching from afar, and waiting for a chance. Now, that chance had come. In 1042, Edward returned to England and was accepted as a king. At 39 years old, he was not a warrior, but a deeply religious man. Some even said he had the gift of healing. And so began the reign of Edward the Confessor. Part number 4. Edward's reign begins. Edward's reign lasted 24 years, a long and mostly peaceful rule. But it was also filled with the quiet tension, shifting alliances and decisions that would have consequences for centuries. A king of peace, not war. Edward was not a fighter. He did not lead armies or claim new lands. Instead, he focused on church, justice, and diplomacy. He surrounded himself with Norman advisors, including the bishops and even knights. He caused unease among powerful English nobles, especially the Godwin family, who were the most powerful earls in England. His marriage to Edith Godwin. In 1045, Edward married Edith, daughter of Earl Godwin of Essex, the most powerful nobleman in England. This was a political alliance meant to ease tensions, but the marriage was complicated. Many historians believe Edward and Edith never consummated their union, possibly because of Edward's religious beliefs or as a way to stay independent from the Godwin clan. Regardless, they remained married until Edward's death. A delicate balance. Edward's reign was one of balance. He had to keep the powerful Godwins happy while not letting the Normans dominate. He walked a tightrope for 2 decades, often favoring the church, promoting legal reforms, and staying out of foreign wars. Part number 5 is Edward's legacy, saint, builder, and peacemaker. The Confessor and his faith. Edward's deep religious devotion earned him the title Confessor. He regularly fasted, attended Mass, and gave generously to the church. Many believed he could heal the sick simply by touching them. After his death, he was declared a saint, and his tomb became a popular site for pilgrims. Westminster Abbey. One of Edward's greatest legacies is the construction of Westminster Abbey. He began building it around 1045 near his royal palace in Westminster. It was the first great Romanesque building in England, massive, beautiful, and richly decorated. Though he died just days after it was completed in 1065, it became his final resting place. Later, every English monarch, even up to modern times, would be crowned there. The succession problem. But King Edward had a big failure. He left no heir. Whether it was because of his celibate marriage, old age, or bad luck, Edward died childless. This opened the door to a succession crisis. On his deathbed, Edward supposedly named Harold Godwin's son, his brother-in-law, as his successor. But across the sea, another man had a claim. William, Duke of Normandy, who claimed Edward had once promised him the crown. Part number 6 is Edward's death and the road to 1066. Edward's final days. So Edward fell ill in late 1065. As he lay dying, he remained calm and faithful, praying often and speaking little. On January 5th, 1066, Edward the Confessor died peacefully. He was buried in Westminster Abbey the very next day, but his death set off one of the most dramatic years in English history. The Witten, England's Council of Nobles, chose Harold Godwin's son as king. He was strong, English-born, and had the support of army. But across the sea, William of Normandy was preparing for war. He claimed Edward had once promised him the throne, and the herald had sworn an oath to support him. So in October 1066, William invaded England. At the Battle of Hastings, Harold was killed, William became William the Conqueror, and the Normans took control. It was the end of Anglo-Saxon rule and the start of a new chapter in England history. Now starts our part number 7. Why Edward still matters. Though Edward, the Confessor, was not a conqueror or warrior, he changed the course of history. His long and peaceful reign gave England stability after decades of Viking wars. His deep faith shaped English identity. He became the first English king to be canonized, and his image became a symbol of English holiness. And most importantly, the crisis after his death set the stage for the Norman Conquest, which would forever change England's language, culture, laws, and monarchy. Without Edward, there would be no William the Conqueror, no Tower of London, no English, French royalty mix. In a way, Edward was the final breath of old England. At the end, from exile to throne, from peaceful rule to assigned tomb, Edward the Confessor ruled without bloodshed, but left behind a storm. His life may seem quiet, even humble, but his reign triggered the most famous invasion in English history. So next time you hear about William the Conqueror or the Battle of Hastings, remember the king who came before, the Holy One, the Confessor, King Edward. Must comment below which part of Edward's reign surprised you the most. And don't forget to like, subscribe and ring the bell for more epic royal stories. See you in the next video. History lovers, bye bye.